Hey y'all, it's Linda. Welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I have done 2 of these in the past, and it is time for a 3rd installment of Would I Repurchase These Palettes? Dun, 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 dun. You've likely seen other creators do this as well, but what I'm going to do is I am going to go through a handful of palettes in my collection and let you know that knowing what I know now, would I repurchase these palettes again? Or otherwise known as, if I lost all of my makeup, would I try to repurchase these palettes again? And I'll be honest, like a lot of times the answer is no. Now last year I did so many huge declutters, and I have really pared down my collection into things that I love, things that bring me joy, things that just make me happy in general. And that means that there are no palettes in my collection. Like there's not a single palette in my collection right now that I can say I hate or I dislike it and it's just there. I enjoy all of the palettes that I have, but that doesn't mean that I would repurchase them again. And I'll kind of go into why for a bunch of these, but like there's definitely some I'm looking at over here where I'm like, hell yes, I would repurchase that in a second, like the day my makeup went missing, and others where I'm like, nah, dude. And I really do think that a couple of these are actually going to surprise you. So let's get into this. How many palettes do I have today? 9. I have 9. That's such a weird number, but I have 9 palettes. So let's jump into it. I will say that at least one of these palettes is discontinued and others might be out of stock. I am going to list everything in the description box down below so you can check it out for yourself. But let's start with what I used on my eyes today, okay? Now that doesn't necessarily mean I would repurchase it. It's just what I used today. So this is the Scooby-Doo Creeps and Crawls palette. I bought both of the Scooby-Doo palettes at the same time, and if you watched it, the other one, the Ruh-Roh Raggy, was definitely my favorite. So the Creeps and Crawls is a 10 shade palette, definitely leaning very cool toned, very jewel toned in nature. We've got blues, we've got purples, we have 5 mattes, and we have 5 shimmers, and some of the shimmers are duochromes or multi-chromes. Like you can tell, this one here definitely leans silvery purple, as does this one here. This one definitely has a gold tinge to it that is quite difficult to see on camera. Sometimes you can see it in the mirror as well. So knowing what I know now, would I repurchase this palette? Yes, 100 times yes. And the reason being because the quality is so damn good. Yes, you might have other purple shades in your collection, obviously. And I'm not even going to use the phrase the quality is good for the price, knowing that this is a more inexpensive palette. This quality is good hands down. Like I was kind of blown away by these when I used them, and I need to use them more. This was also kind of a good exercise of I need to use these more. This is so beautiful. I am so happy with this look that I came up with today. Like I think it's so beautiful and so shifty. This is the Sparkle, which they don't have names. None of the shades have names, but this one right here is that kind of shimmer sparkle on the the center of the lid. These are really amazing. I was really impressed with these. Plus, they're coming out with a Scooby-Doo Part 2 collection, and I'm so excited to see it because if the quality is the same as this, I'm very likely going to buy it because this was just gorgeous. So yes, this is one I would repurchase. Going into this next one, so Melt Cosmetics, which as you may or may not know, is one of my favorite overall brands of makeup. I really love them. I really love the way that they look at a color story and the quality of their eyeshadows. Here's the thing. My very favorite palette of all time is the Gemini I palette. So when I found out that they were re-releasing that palette, even though I still had my old palette, I jumped on the chance to get a new one as well. So I would not only have a backup because I love it that much, but also I wanted to test the formulas to see how they were different. I actually did a whole video, if you're interested, on the original formulation versus the new formulation. But along with that, they came out with the Gemini II. Now, Gemini 1 was all grungy olives and greens and mustards and browns and things like that, whereas Gemini 2 definitely still leans grungy, but you've got these pinks and these warm, almost like red burgundy colors, along with these grungy greens that straight up looks almost like the packaging. It looks like a rose is what I think of. I think of the stem. I think of all the different colors of the rose. I think of, you know, I just think of roses. Now, this palette is stunning. It performs so well. So would I repurchase this palette if I lost it? No. I wonder how many of you that is going to actually surprise, but the answer for me is no. Reason being because I have picked up this palette so many times and sat there and stared at it and gone to use it and then went, No, I want to do something else. And that doesn't mean I don't still really enjoy this. That doesn't mean I'm even decluttering this. I'm not even considering decluttering this because it's so beautiful and unique to my collection. But I don't feel like I use this enough personally. If you are somebody who is into peaches and pinks and things like that, this is an amazing palette. I just noticed every time I pick it up, I'm sticking to this half of the palette, right? I'm sticking again to those grungy greens and olives. And to be honest, I do use this color, which is Almond Eyes. I use this one quite a lot. It is just like a grungy olive brown. And I also do use this one, which is Schmood. I use this quite a bit, but these colors over here, I don't touch them nearly enough. So if this was re-released or if I lost all of my makeup and I had to repurchase, this is one I would not repurchase. Now here's one that I will say has been discontinued, but this is the ColourPop At Forest Sight palette that they did in collaboration with Raw Beauty Christie. It's so funny because like I thought for a minute that it sort of looks like the Gemini II palette that I just looked at, but no, these tones are not nearly as rosy. These tones are a different variety of earth tones. So these are all very earthy, but it's not like you're just seeing neutrals or you're just seeing like the bright blue of the ocean, the bright green of the grass, things like that. This to me does speak Pacific Northwest, which is what Christy was going for. So it's those mossy colors and those kind of deeper, richer colors. So if this was re-released or if I lost all my makeup, would I repurchase it? And it was still available? Absolutely. Good God, yes. Oh my God, yes. I'm sorry, this is my favorite ColourPop palette of all time as of right now. It really is. I love this palette so freaking much. These colors are so beautiful and they are so pigmented and easy to work with. You can easily make a neutral look with this. You can easily make a smoky look with this. You can easily make a bright, vibrant, shimmery look with this. I opened this and immediately was inspired at all that I could do with it. And to this day, I still love using this palette. Now, I'll admit, I don't use this one as much when I'm on camera because it has been discontinued and I don't want people to be upset that they can't get it. But I feel like I had to talk about it because this is one that I think even if I had to repurchase all my makeup, this is one I would seek out on like Poshmark or Depop or Mercari. And if I can find any that are for sale, I will link them down below because I do think that these are just beautiful and stunning and worth it. I really hope that there's not some asshole trying to charge like $200 for this though. This next one might be a cop-out because I'm going to talk about two palettes, and not because they were sold together, but because they're sisters, kind of. You'll know what I mean. So this is the Shroud and Baddie Bean palettes that came out with, and at the time it does say Baddie Bean on the Hallow Bean, but it says Butte Bean on It's Freakin' Bad. So these are two very different color stories. It's Freakin' Bad is very cool toned. Again, we've got that kind of like grungy vibe with some of these colors. It's very dark, and this is not a lot of what I have in my collection. This palette is Halloween. The Halloween palette is Halloween to me. We've got bright oranges, sparkly oranges, greens. We've got this, which is like one of the shiftiest colors I've ever seen. There we go. In the mirror, you can see that it's kind of gold green, and in the palette, it's like dark purple, and it shifts all over the place. It's just such a cool color. So these, again, they are two very different palettes, but I felt the need to kind of include them together to talk about them. If all my makeup was gone, blah, 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 you know the drill by now. Yes, this is another one that if I couldn't find this on the Shroud website, because I do know that these are typically sold out or on back order or things like that, I would not even think twice before paying higher than retail for these because I love them that much. The quality of Shroud is what sort of like made me really open my eyes, I think, to a lot more indie brands because the quality is so, so, so good. And they are just, they're just beautiful. The color stories have so much thought put into them that, I don't know, I'm just entranced by them. And just, oh God, I love them both. Which one do I like more? I think I use the Hello Bean more, but I just love this one. I've just even used this in a recent video and I love them. So again, even though these didn't come out together, I do sort of see them as sister palettes, and yes, I would repurchase. I see two here that I'm kind of avoiding because I want to sort of save them for last. I think I'm gonna have to save them for last because both of these I'm not even sure of my answer yet. So here's another one that's very interesting to me. So this is the Urban Decay Naked Honey palette, and this to date is the only full-size Urban Decay palette I have left in my collection. I've decluttered everything else. This is beautiful, warm gold goodness. Like, this is what I think of when I think of honey. It is dripping almost in like luxurious golds and browns, and it's just so delicious. And I have had so many people buy this palette on my recommendation, and that makes me really happy, to be honest. I still use this palette quite regularly, and I just, oh gosh, the color story, it just kind of makes me like feel warm and cozy, if that makes sense. So would I repurchase this palette? I feel so guilty saying that because, again, everything that's in my collection are things that I do love and things that I'm keeping. This is not getting decluttered. I'm not decluttering this at all. But if I suddenly lost all my makeup and I knew that I had to repurchase neutrals to make up for what this was, I do think that there are some that I prefer the quality of more in my collection. But I still love this palette. So it's so hard for me to say that. Like, I feel like I'm betraying the Urban Decay Naked Honey palette. Like, I feel like I'm being rude to it right now. Like, do I have to apologize? Now, the place where I still recommend this palette and will always recommend this palette is this goes on sale for 50% off so often, both on the Urban Decay site and also on Ulta and on Sephora, where you can get this for I want to say it's $24.50 each time. And it is absolutely worth that cost. It is absolutely worth that. And you know what? Maybe I would repurchase at 50% off. Maybe, but I'm going to stick with my answer and say no. But if you are looking for some neutrals, also if you are looking for a gift for somebody, wait till this goes 50% off. And I always try to let you know when it does, because I think that it is worth it at that price. Wait till it goes 50% off, buy it. And this makes a fantastic gift, because I do think that these colors look good on any color of eyes and any skin tone. So I would not repurchase this, and I feel so guilty saying that. I'm so sorry. Eyeshadow palettes don't have feelings. Did you ever see that commercial? I want to say it was for IKEA, where like they had a lamp that like was sitting, and it was an old lamp, and you see a guy replace it with a newer lamp, and he takes the old one and put it out on the curb with the trash, and it starts raining and there's sad music, and then all this guy's like, don't feel bad for a lamp. It's just a lamp. And it's an IKEA commercial. Anyway, that's what just made me think of it. I don't feel bad. It's just a palette. It has no feelings.
Many of you feel bad for this lamp. That is because you're crazy. It has no feelings.
Okay, for this next one, I will say, just double checking, yes, this is the only palette that I was sent in PR, so I did not purchase this. This is the Nomad Monteverde Cloud Forest palette, and it is just like a jungle of color, and it is so beautiful. A jungle of color. Look at me, I'm like a poet over here. Okay, I still really enjoy this palette. The colors are so vibrant, and I feel like you can make so many freaking looks with this palette. And I love these shifty, beautiful shimmers, and how bright and vibrant. Like, these are positively freaking neon colors. And it's just, I don't know, it's very like the cover. You know what I mean? It's very like neon, it's very tropical and everything like that. Also, I just adore Nomad's quality. Would I repurchase this palette? No. Now, the reason I wouldn't repurchase this is similar to the reason that I wouldn't repurchase the Gemini II. It has nothing to do with the quality. It has nothing to do with the color story. It has to do with the fact that I don't use this palette as much as I should. And you know, maybe that's on me. Maybe that's on me. But like, when it comes to these neon colors, I don't do looks personally that have neon in them too often. I do love color. I do love colorful looks, but I just don't do neon. And considering that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these 18 shades are neon, I feel like it's a waste for me to, you know, to own it. But at the same time, I love the rest of the shades so much. Like, I use this shade, which is Green Spiny Lizard, very often as just a beautiful matte grassy green. And I also, of course, I will never turn down a like sparkly golden green kind of color. That one is Hanging Bridges. I use that often. I even use Green Vine Snake. I love the greens in this palette, I guess. Oh my God, Glass Wings, yeah. And even this one, Wildlife Wonderland, I use all the greens in this palette. If this was just all greens, then I'd say, yes, I'd repurchase in a second. But as it stands, I wouldn't. Okay, I wouldn't. Why do I genuinely feel guilty about these? I think it's because I do talk about low buy and just only having in your collection what you love, and I genuinely do. Like, my collection makes me so freaking happy, and I did some big declutters last year, and I feel like by saying no, that should mean I want to declutter these, and I absolutely do not, but there it is. These last two are making me actually anxious because I don't know my answer yet, and I might have to wait until I'm looking physically at the palette to make my answer. Okay, I'm just gonna pick this one up. It's the Melt 420. The reason this one is tricky for me is because, oh my God, I love this color story so freaking much. I adore these grungy, nasty, ugly, dirty, swampy, disgusting tones so much. They are like warming my heart in the nether regions. But here's the thing that I've talked about in the past. I do not feel like this is the easiest palette to work with. Now, I know some people say this is the worst palette they've ever used. I do not feel that way. I do feel like I get and have gotten amazing looks with this palette, but it does take time. You do need to sit with it and be patient with it, okay? And if you are patient with it, you will get amazing freaking looks with this palette. Seeing these grungy tones that look like a 90s wet dream. Would I repurchase this? Can you see smoke coming out of my ears? I think no. I think no. I think that when it comes to grungy tones, I have palettes that give at least the same vibe as the, oh, shit, do I though? They give the same vibe as this and they're easier to work with. I will say that. And this, again, this is not an impossible palette. This is not a bad palette by any means. And I don't see myself ever actually decluttering this one, but would I repurchase? I don't think so. Now, I will say the one shimmer in here, Shatter, is probably one of the worst shimmers I've ever used. I don't use this palette for the shimmer. I hate this shimmer. It's like nothing comes up. It's like, now of course it looks metallic as hell. It's like freaking hearing me talk about it. I don't think I would repurchase. Now it's making me want to use this palette like this week to talk myself back into, yes, I would repurchase it. But as of right now, I'm gonna say no, and I'm gonna put it aside, and I'm gonna just take a deep breath because it's just an eyeshadow palette and we're all okay here. We're all mad here. And this next one, okay. It's the Natasha Denona Gold palette, okay? And the reason I'm bringing this one in is because this has been very discontinued. Once in a while, it does pop back up as if Natasha herself wandered into her basement and happened to find a box of like 50 of these or something, and they put it up and it's gone like that, okay? This palette, when I heard it was being discontinued, it was something that was on my wish list for a very long time, and when I heard it was discontinued, I went to 3 different Sephoras before I finally found it, and I purchased it myself at full price at $129, okay? Would I repurchase? You know what's funny? When it was sitting here next to me, closed, I was pretty convinced my answer was going to be no, and the answer is yes. I would repurchase this. Yes, I would repurchase this. Natasha Denona quality is brilliant. It is so beautiful, and it is foiled when it needs to be foiled, and the mattes blend out like a dream. They are so buttery. They are just so wonderful. And this palette is no exception. And for a minute there, I genuinely thought I was going to say no, I would not repurchase. I would, okay? I would, because I just love it. I freaking love it. I love gold tones. I think they make my blue eyes really look sparkling and shimmering and everything like that. And it's so beautiful, and I'm so sad that not everyone can get it right now. Again, I will look for it, and if I can find it, I will link it below, and I always try to let you guys know if this ever pops back up magically where you can snag one, and always check my YouTube community page or my Instagram stories for things like that. I try to be really good about telling you all about stuff like that, but this, you know, I'm surprising myself, genuinely. I really thought this was going to be a not repurchase, and I would repurchase. So that's it. I want you to let me know in the comments down below, if you have any of these palettes, are they ones that you would repurchase? Or if you haven't purchased these yet, are any of these on your wish list where you still want to purchase them in the future? Because I'm just so curious about, like, in general, how people's opinions differ with that kind of thing. Or like, what's a palette that you love? It will never leave your collection, but you probably wouldn't repurchase it if you lost it. It's always an interesting one. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, it would mean so much to me if you took a second, give this video a thumbs up with the like button that costs you absolutely nothing, but it really helps out my channel. You all can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Those are all GlitterFallout. And as always and forever, you are super freaking rock stars. And I love you so much with my whole heart. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.